I'm Becca Taylor. I'm the director of Ociciwan Contemporary Arts Center. My family comes from Fisher River Cree Nation, which is in northern Manitoba, but I was born and raised here in Mistahi, and I'm really excited and honored to be having this conversation and be working with these wonderful artists that we've had an opportunity to build wonderful relationships with over the last 8 weeks as we kind of develop this exhibition, probably longer, closer to 12 weeks at this point. So I just want to do a land acknowledgement. Ociciwan Contemporary Arts Center acknowledges Treaty 6 territory and the Métis Nation of Alberta, the ancestral and traditional territories of the Cree, Métis, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations and continue today. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today, those who have gone before us, and we acknowledge those yet to come. So today we're having the artist talk for our current exhibition, sahkitok mistahi, which explores love and kindness and generosity through language in times of displacement, isolation, and loneliness. Using language as a method to extend care to one another through messages and songs while investigating the intimate relationship between words and community. Each work offers the community a chance to join in dialogue with the artists, regardless of fluency of traditional languages. Audience members are encouraged to share notes of care, serving as a reminder to extend love across our community during the hard times we all face collectively. We want to thank our funders, Canada Council for the Arts, Alberta Foundation for the Arts, and Edmonton Arts Council for supporting this exhibition. So I'll do a quick introduction of each of the speakers and we'll get started with questions. Sébastien Aubin is held the position of the Indigenous Designer in Residence at the University of Manitoba School of Art, Winnipeg, where he produced a body of creative work and research that extends our understanding of design and graphic form. He has worked for some of the most prestigious graphic design studios in Canada and maintains a career as a freelance graphic artist. He is a founding member of LIGTVOET Collective, which is dedicated to researching, creating, producing, and educating audiences about Indigenous digital culture. Aubin is part of the AM Collective and creates works that revolves around imagination, sparking dialogue on subjects that relate to everyday life and emotions. He is a proud member of the, I should have asked this one, sorry, Sebastian, Cree Nation in Manitoba. KIONA,
yeah.
Thanks. KIONA Lightfoot is a Cree Métis artist from Michelle First Nation, currently practicing in Amiskwaciwâskahikan. She primarily works in painting and printmaking, exploring stories of grief and tenderness. Her practice uses a non-linear telling of memories through narrative work as a form of personal archiving. It draws from feelings of loss, displacement, and enfranchisement within her own Indigenous identity, but also from moments of deep belly laughter. Partnering with her studio and practice, KIONA has also been working alongside other artists in initiatives of community care, co-running Making Space, a visual arts-focused peer mentorship group decentering whiteness and prioritizing collaboration. Emily Riddle is a Nihwa, a member of the Alexander Cree Nation in Treaty 6. She lives in Amiskwaciwâskahikan. She is a writer, researcher, policy analyst, and library worker. Her first poetry chapbook will come out with Moon Jelly House in 2001. In 2020, she was shortlisted for the CPC Poetry Prize and played a lot of Mario Kart. Cheyenne Rayne Legrand is a Nihwa Isco artist, I'm so sorry, Cheyenne, from Big Stone Cree Nation. She currently resides in Amiskwaciwâskahikan, also known as Edmonton, Alberta. Cheyenne graduated from Emily Carr University with her BFA in Visual Arts in 2019. She was selected as the winner of the BC Prize for BMO First Art Emerging Art competition and received the Moment Factory Award from her piece, Nihwa Isco. Her work often explores the interconnection between history and the body. She works interdisciplinary, moving through installations, photography, video, sound, and performance art. So Michelle's sharing her screen right now. I know we haven't been able to officially open up to the public. We're really hoping that we're going to be able to soon, but we're sharing images of the exhibition with you all so you can see them online here. And continue looking on our social media and our websites. We'll be posting more about the show over the next 8 weeks, as well as sharing the messages that community members and the artists are sharing on the Notes of Care community board. All right, so I'll get started with the questions. So our first question for you all is, how did you come to the idea of how to develop your work around language for this exhibition? Maybe we'll start with you, Emily.
Yeah, so I guess it's important for me to acknowledge that I usually work in tech, so I was very honored to be asked by this crew to create visual art because it's something that I grew up doing and do in like my own personal life, but definitely not professionally. So when I was thinking about how to approach this, as someone has been like learning Nihiyoiwan and probably more seriously within the last year since I've moved home, is thinking about how language kind of structures our everyday relationships with each other, and how if Edmonton or if like our personal interactions on the bus or in public places were in the language, how we would treat each other more kindly, which kind of relates to the name, like sahkitok mistahi, which means is like a command to love each other a lot. And then also thinking about how it's the erosion of kind of the role of Igichitausquewak and women in our nation that's culminated in kind of a demise of our language and shortening of some words and loss of vocabulary and not having as many fluent speakers. So thinking the first sort of like large pillow that I created says in the language, did I speak Cree in my dream last night? And so then all the other dialogue bubbles are kind of different everyday interactions of speaking kindness to each other. And I think during the pandemic, I've read a lot of graphic novels, so it's definitely influenced by that as well. And the hope that people can stand behind these or stand beside these pillows and kind of think about how everyday relations would be structured differently if we did it in our language.
Sebastian, do you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. Well, for me, the language is not something that I was really taught through my youth, but like traditionally I did like powwow dancing from a very young age. The language was withhold from us, except my grandparents, both of them spoke it and taught it at CIFC. Well, it was called CIFC back in the day. And so slowly yet surely, I'm getting into a little bit more of a rapport where I'm trying to learn my language through, with my grandmother. I try and phone her every other weekend. She says my accent is pretty good, but I sound like a Frenchman. But I was born in Manitoba, but was raised in Quebec. But that being said, I mean, for me, I've been trying to maintain and continue Cree syllabics and the language through its written form, because my grandfather actually used to work with linguists and translated the Bible in Cree and tried to develop different ways of writing syllabics as different sounds. So I guess I'm continuing that in that regards. And since I'm in Quebec and the show is actually in Edmonton, I couldn't make it out. So what happened is the stencil for the show, so that it could pass around from building to building. And the pieces that I made were also made for the community, so that people take the stencils and use them maybe in different communities at schools that you see here. So they're all cut. All the syllabics are cut in a different way as a stencil. So that's basically it. And then the word that I chose was nichimus, because that was like the first. Like those are words that my grandmother and my grandfather used to say a lot in Cree, and I never knew what it meant, but it always sounded so sweet. So that's the word that my grandmother actually taught me, so to use when I finally fall in love, which has happened. So yeah, it always relates around the love of my language, my traditions, to wanting to know it, to grow with it, and to kind of pass it on in written form. So it would be the third or fourth Cree syllabics that I've done. So I've been studying syllabics. Unfortunately, I don't know how to necessarily speak my language very well or to write it very well. So I work with my grandmother and my cousin to make sure I don't make any errors. So that's about it.
Wonderful, thank you. Kiona, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. So I didn't grow up I didn't grow up speaking my language, and I still don't really speak it. I know a few words from my mom as she learned when she was working at Poundmaker's Lodge is when she first started learning. So when going into this project, I was thinking about, I guess, just like my own relationships and my own connection to, like, how did we say I love you in like this really stiff and colonial language? So I think that started branching out into moments of like, whether it be like gift giving or these little narratives or like little mannerisms or these little things we would give each other when we were growing up. So
Kiona's doing an artist talk.
So we're just going to interrupt for a second. Can everybody just make sure your mics are muted? We can hear the artist speak. That'd be great. Thank you.
Hi, Jessica. Yeah, I was just thinking about like being so displaced from this language, like from my Cree language, what that looks like in terms of care. So yeah, I just decided to make a bunch of little pieces of what specifically that love is to my family when like the English language couldn't be something that could ever capture that.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to say danse to everyone, and so nice to see so many friendly faces. I guess my connection to the Nihio language has always been through my mother and my kukum. And in the performance video in the show, I am basically singing to my musum and my kukum. So the syllabics that are kind of going across my face are the words musum and kukum. And I guess the way that I feel, because I also cannot speak my language, the way that I feel most connected to my language is through song. And you know, my mother's a Nihio singer and songwriter, and I also, the past summer, I got the honor of singing with Carol Powder. She also goes by Chubby Cree. She actually is the one who shared this song with me that I'm singing in this performance, and I'm so thankful to you, Carol. Yeah, so it's just kind of a way for me to honor the language speakers in my family, and the wooden syllabics that are put on top of the projection were made actually with the help of my partner, Sean Hansen, and I guess that's for me partly where like love came in, and that sharing of creating these objects together. But what the syllabics read is just my middle name, which is Rayne, and in Nihio it's Kimawan. So that's kind of an ongoing theme in a lot of my work. It's this Kimawan I often put in a lot of my work. But yeah, so this piece was, I guess, organically created through wanting to sing to my musum and my kukum, and yeah, I just I love them a lot, and I love our language. Yeah, that's about it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about your work. I'm kind of curious, you each were kind of alluded to it a bit when you were talking about the piece and kind of that relationship you have to language through family and community and those connections. And I wonder if you can just expand on it a little bit more on how language is connecting you to your community or to your families, and those kind of relationships that are built through learning language or through conversation, or your, if you're not like learning your language, but your connection to hearing traditional languages from your communities. Maybe we'll start with Sebastian this time.
Well, so I'm a type geek. I like fonts. I like word sounds, text-based. When it pertains to language, I always thought that Cree, well, the way that my grandparents spoke it and the way that I heard it in my community was like kind of very slow, very tranquil, very, very polite. Had funny intonations at time. People would laugh. You know, couldn't get all the jokes growing up, but I would pretend to laugh, pretend to understand. So the thing, I think it's just the intrigue has always been brought upon the fact that I couldn't understand it. I understand my culture, but not my language, unfortunately. So with time, since I've been loving type, making type, and looking at type, and doing Cree syllabics, I've been learning through that. So I've been learning how a syllabic has a certain intonation, a certain sound. There's different types of, you know, writing styles that have been developed through the years. I'm also doing a master's at Concordia in design, and I'm actually making a Cree syllabic font that's monospace. I'll explain it very shortly. We can go in detail maybe in the question period, but for me is that my grandfather translated the Bible in syllabics for people to understand like, you know, to assimilate people towards religion, right? And I think he thought that this would expand knowledge sharing, differentiations between nations and people, colonizers and colonized. And for me, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do a monospace Cree syllabic font that I can actually use to code computers so that we can build different relations to something that is not ours, and to possibly do something that which is inanimate, make it animate, just like in ceremony, like how a pipe, if we don't know what it is and don't know how to spark it up, it's just a rock with holes in it. We don't know what it means. We don't know what it does. But until we have, I find that through language and also through Cree language, if you do speak your language, and I'm trying really hard to learn it, but within time, I find that spiritually as well, and within song, the energy of the language flows better with like the unseen, let's say the spirits. So there's all these things that relate towards that, but I'm doing it in a technological kind of basis for me, because not that I'm trying to portray anything that's like AI. I'm trying to see that if we can talk to things in Cree, if we can't build better relations with them, and vice versa. Use language coding, but if we do it in Cree, maybe the computer will interact with us differently, or technology, or within each other, or code. And we talked about love, like the show is basically about love and sharing and community. So if we're more gentle with it, maybe we'll have a better purpose in the long term. So that's where I'm basing all my, like, now that's how I'm using and seeing Cree and Cree syllabics. And that it's not just language, but it's also like a way of communication and sound. And yeah, I could go on for a long time, so I'll stop it there. If you have questions, you can ask afterwards.
Who wants to go next?
I can go.
Okay.
Yeah, but could you repeat the question?
I'll try. I feel like I was kind of rambling through it. I think I'm curious on like, 'cause you guys each kind of talked about your relationship to it with the connection to community, and I was just kind of hoping you'd expand on that relationship to language, like through community, and like the tenderness that comes from it, or this relationship to, I guess for myself, I'm just kind of thinking like, I don't know how to speak my language, and you've all heard me stumble through it, and I'm not very good at pronouncing as many times as I hear it. It's just, but there's like a sense of pride when I hear it still, and it's something that just feels like inherently that belongs to my body. So I'm just kind of curious, like that, like relationship to language for each of you through community and that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess like I was talking about with my mom and my cookum, like growing up, always when I used to spend all the summers on reserve, and up in Big Stone Cree Nation, and I grew up all the time listening to my mom and my kukum speaking Cree, and almost every time I go visit, I learn one more Cree word. And my goal in my life is to learn my language and to do that before, you know, so I can speak with my kukum. That's one of my goals, but I guess the way that I've been able to learn it is through song. And, you know, I can't speak the language, but I can sing it. And I guess one of the moments I always share when I'm speaking about language is the moment I realized I needed to learn my language was I was going through a really difficult time, and I was really struggling to find the English words to express what I was feeling. And then I realized it's because I didn't have access to the words, the Nihio words, to really truly express how I was feeling in that moment. And yeah, I think it's exciting to be a part of this show together and to celebrate the language and for it to be visible. And I think that in itself is like an act of community coming together to share all of our different perspectives on the language. Yeah, so like I'm really appreciative to everyone in the show, and I'm really happy to share this space with everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, your work is the only work in the show which I thought added such a powerful element to the show that actually has the language in audio format, so you can actually hear it, you know, beyond just witnessing. You brought it into the space so folks can engage with it through sound, which was it's really quite powerful to be able to walk through the space and see so many, see the language very visible and not always afforded the translation within it as well throughout the space, and then to hear you singing those beautiful words just really added a really beautiful element to it by sharing that song with us. Emily, would you like to go next?
Sure, I can go next. I didn't grow up with the language in my house, and both of my grandparents on my mom's side are not around anymore, and my dad is Munyao, so there's no Cree language on that side. But I started taking Cree at U of A with Dorothy Thunder in my undergrad, and then I moved to BC and hung out there for 4 or 5 years, and I was working for BC First Nations in education and developing like language immersion degrees with a bunch of BC First Nations who had like so few speakers. And so we were trying to negotiate funding with the province, and they often, this funding would not come despite the NDP government. And some of these communities only had like 4 or 5 speakers of their dialect left. So when I moved home and like wanted to seriously do more language, even though I had like a bit of a base, I just feel like super blessed that we have all these speakers, and I have speakers in my extended family, and that we have connection to that. So I think, I think there's a really big push for language learning in Alberta for Nahiawak right now that I feel like you see Enoch doing a lot of stuff, and yeah, feeling super blessed about that. And I think like syllabics too, like I don't know if I know 3 of us worked with syllabics as well, and in Cheyenne's piece, she has them on her body too, and that is like a very old practice that people used to draw like certain syllabics on their body as like a means of healing, because they are part of like our history of creation story and like sounds of the universe and a means of us praying. So I think that that's super powerful too. I feel very grateful to have like learned the star chart and syllabics too. And I had one more thing and now I forget what it was. Oh, that I recently, who was saying this? I think it was Jerry Saddleback, and I think some other folks that are in the call are in his Tuesday class, but he was talking about how we used to be the most literate people on the planet at one point, that we all knew these syllabics. So I think a lot about how, I think there's a lot of shame in language learning, and I just recently started this mentor apprenticeship program and with Dorothy Thunder, and she like won't speak English to me at all. And I understand what she's saying, but I can't respond the way that I would like to. So that's a learning aspect, but that sort of shame that we have for not knowing our language is something that it will constantly come up, but it's like, it's our language, like was given to us as part of creation too. So it's like ours to take and learn. So I think like when you start to see it that way, it structures your relationship to like the language and other people too. Big rant.
Thank you, Kiona.
Yeah, like I said, I also didn't grow up around my language. I guess a little bit. There was sprinklings here and there. Like I got to see my mom learn, like I said, and it was really fun watching her have these big pieces of paper and like taping them to like the farmhouse windows of like Cree words and try and like tell my brother and I what they were. And at the time, like I didn't really retain much, but I lived with my mushum, and my cookum also lived with us on and off as well. And I used to always get cookum and mushum mixed up. And I don't know, I always thought it was really funny. My cookum did not think it was funny and my mushum did think it was funny. So kind of like two sides of like the feeling of like shame sometimes, but mostly like also my experience with language has been really playful, even though it's been pretty sparse just because we are so displaced. I think that now, even in this project, it's been a really nice opportunity for my mom and I to talk on the phone and like exchange sort of what we're learning. And even though we each only know a few things so far, it feels like that sense of pride, and it's really, it like feels like really nice and settled in my stomach when we say it, and that's very special. So I'm really grateful for the show in that sense, because I think in a really grief-heavy time, it was like language really, even in like small forms, really was like quite healing for us to talk about very openly and playfully, and to just stumble through and like laugh and make mistakes, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a really unique opportunity because of COVID. It kind of really changed the way Ociciwan started thinking about our relationships and programming. And you all were so generous to give us a few hours of your time each week for us to be able to meet and have these conversations and kind of really develop the exhibition. It was through those conversations and through shared experiences that we were able to like really form, you know, this very general idea that we had about language, but just we knew we just wanted to work with you for specifically at this time, kind of three emerging artists who come from Edmonton, and then Sebastian, we have developed this relationship with you for a few years now. We've been working together. You helped us do our rebranding. You brought us this font that we were able to use, and kind of our relationship as an Indigenous space to language to make sure that it's present. And a lot during these conversations, we talked a lot about love and care and humility and reciprocity, sorry. And I'm just kind of wondering if you guys can each kind of share a little bit more about how does your work, do you think, fits into those moments, you know? And there was also this need I felt throughout our entire conversation to make sure that there was something that was open to the audience to participate as well. So it wasn't just these singular narratives from 4 artists, but something that everyone could come to and collaborate on, regardless of your fluency of language. Kiona, do you want to start?
For the collaborative project, I mean, I haven't written out my little thing yet, but I'm really excited. We've been putting like different words and phrases that like we've submitted, like in whatever language, like onto a projector and projecting it. And I think when we were initially talking about the idea, it was, I don't know, it just felt so playful. Like it was like these like Cree community classifieds, or like these like little like diary like entries of like struggling through a language, but like with lots of forgiveness as well. And there's something really nice about inviting people in to submit things that maybe they wouldn't normally see in a gallery space. So I'm really excited to see kind of how it plays out. And it was just like a way for us to connect with like people outside of like the four of us in Ociciwan as well. I don't know, I'm just excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, it is, pardon me, open for folks to participate in. Michelle, you do have the Google Forms. Maybe you can share in the chat. So you're more than welcome to, and it's something that we can share on our Instagram for sure. I wonder, Emily and Sebastian, I actually have a question kind of geared towards both of you. You both have contributed like takeaway elements to this work to share. And you don't provide any translations, or Sebastian, you kind of leave room within these stencils for folks to structure their own words, and an opportunity for potentially folks to plaster these around the city. So I was wondering if you could, and you know, Cheyenne, KIONA, jump in as well, like talk about the importance of visibility of language within urban centers, within these spaces, and kind of the resiliency of language through this.
Yeah, I made a sticker sheet, which I have right here, and some of them are like kind of remix of the pieces in the gallery, like the cloud, the thought bubble, and then I have a few other ones. And yeah, I really debated about providing translations or not, but I have not so far. And I think part of that is because I always have this like desire after living in Vancouver, where you're like on public transit and you hear like two people speaking a language to each other that they are presumably the only people on the bus that understand. Like I've always kind of wanted that with like my other Cree friends, that we could just like speak a language and people not get. And when I was taking more classes with Dorothy, actually I was at a bar once and said something cheeky to my friend Jordan, and about this other person in the bar, and they responded in Cree. So I guess you can assume this super blonde guy. But I wanted to have stickers that people could place on like posters or things like that have dialogue that say things like I respect you or I love you, and sort of being able to provide that in a public space about, yeah, what does it look like to kind of say these things on like kind of at a time when there's like a lot of really rough political discourse in Alberta, and it's kind of a tricky place to live. Like, what does it mean to put like I respect you or like I care for you on like a Jason Kenney poster on a somewhere in Edmonton or something like that. So yeah.
Well, for me, it was, I had an idea of actually taking, well, Michelle actually really helped really well of taking the stencil that I makes a really large stencil, is 8 feet by 4 feet, and it says Nichimus on it. And we're talking about the idea that stencils in the graffiti world are used to do graffiti. So I thought maybe we could go and use this stencil to go on possibly on a legislative building in Alberta to show that, you know, we love them, or they could love us, or, you know, we could, but probably not a good idea, and we didn't do that, and that's fine. But for the rest of it, I did little stencils that people could take home and use, so that you could not just, you could share a moment with a young one or with an elder, talk, draw, do different things. So what I liked is that it looks like shapes, you know, if you don't know anything about it, but it can bring another type of dialogue when you take it outside of the gallery, if it goes in institutions, but also the fact that you can actually touch them and use them and draw with them. That's what I thought was that was fun. You could develop words, you could develop shapes. Working with type, I find that you can type also works as a symbol, as a shape, not necessarily as just to communicate something in the long run. If you look at an A, it has a nice shape to it, but this is me, I'm a type geek, so I could go on for hours. But for me, giving these stencils out back to the community was just showing that I am working towards and for the community, and the community for me is the most important thing, somewhat to my artistic practice, because it always revolves around it. And to be invited as well with the Ociciwan to do the branding and to make like the first branded and first Cree made font for a Cree art collective or art gallery was quite an honor for me. And I tried to, again, that's all, I'm trying to respect where I'm coming from and where I'm going, but at the same time, I'm trying to do it through language. And what I liked also about, and I think this is accidental, when I look at the Nichi was that this is a new font I'm working with, which is elongated. It's not the right proportions of a Cree-syllabic font. But Cree-syllabic fonts, if you don't know, were made by, you know, a non-Indigenous person, so we have to indigenize it a little bit. This one, it says Nichimos, but funny enough, if you look at it, it looks like that kind of emoji giving you, like blowing you a heart on the side of its mouth, or like an Indian pointing or giving out a kiss. So this was all just by chance since I've been looking at it. So I wonder who's going to invent like emojis based on Cree-syllabics. That's yet to be seen. But yeah, so that being said, I mean, the collaboration with Cheyenne and Emily and KIONA have been great. I love, and BECCA and Tiffany, it's all, and Michelle and everybody at Ociciwan. It's just been great to get outside my bubble, you know, and share things that have been in my mind for a long time, and to see that other people are kind of in the same headspace all over Turtle Island. So yeah, I'm just quite honored to be sharing my work with these fabulous people.
It's been such a wonderful experience working with you, Sebastian. And I think I just really love, sorry, my dog's making a lot of noise. I just really enjoy the stencils and kind of thinking through them as like educational tools too. You know, we do have like my nieces go to like school where they have like a lot of Cree classes. I can see them like really interacting with those, and it's just so playful and wonderful. Like a great learning tool and resource that you don't see readily available. Yeah, I think at this point I might open it up for questions. If anybody has any, please, I don't know how to do this, raise your hand or put them in the chat.
There's something in the chat about making the stencils and stickers available.
Yeah, they are going to be available. Like we said, we're not open to the public yet. We're really hoping that'll happen, but Michelle and I will talk to artists and we'll come up with some sort of plan to make sure that we're able to disseminate them to those who are interested. You know, because that was a huge intention of this show, was to have a lot of community participation, and we do hope to honor that. We're just creatively trying to figure out other ways and models to be able to do that. So it might simply be, we'll let you know when they're available and you can come swing by the gallery to pick them up. But we'll let you know as soon as we can. Just follow our social media and everything is kind of announced on there. Or you can email Michelle directly at info@ociciwan.ca and she can answer any of those questions about how to get them.
One little thing about, I guess, community and like these giveaways, I haven't made them yet, but I want to make some masks that have syllabics on it. And I guess like thinking through like, yeah, like syllabics on the body as medicine, as like a form of protection. I'm hoping to make some of those, so I hope that some of y'all can get some of those as well. And then I had another thought about the other community element that kind of invites people to collaborate with us, is that projector piece where you can like submit words. I was kind of thinking through like the resilience of language, as you mentioned, Becca, and like, I guess when I'm thinking about an overhead projector, I'm thinking about like school, and I'm thinking about like, it actually brought the thought of residential school systems and like that type of old projector made me think about like the loss of language and the erasure of language, and that perhaps like, you know, these types of tools were used to erase language, but here we are now, you're using the same kind of old material to project the language again. And I just think that that's like powerful. I don't know. It's like kind of maybe like, I don't know if that's a reality of timeline that they could have used these projectors, but like, I don't know, it kind of felt powerful to me to think that through, that like, it's like rewriting the history of, you know, that we have lost our language, but like here we are all together, like, you know, it's like really vibrant and alive, and that makes me very happy.
I just really want to add on that quickly. I've been reading a thesis by, his last name is Murdoch, and he talks about syllabics. It's like a 300-page. I could share it with Michelle, and then she could maybe pass it around. It's so intriguing. He says that you could actually learn syllabics and Cree within 3 months if you just really just talk and write with it. It's like one of the fastest learning phonetic language. So even more than Roman orthography, like A, B, C's, and D's. But yeah, I think that if we do use syllabics and we do use a phonetic language, we could learn a lot so much faster. Just thinking that, yeah, if we're teaching through symbols and cultural connotations, we're much more so attached than just let's say something that feels mathematical.
I think it's also like the three of us creating like giveaways for people visiting the gallery is like a very Cree thing to do. Like people have to leave with stuff. Like you always give people things, or like any sort of gathering, they're like leaving with like leftovers, or like a ceremony where people do giveaways. Yeah. Yeah.
It really, yeah, extends that care back into the community. And I think, you know, and I think that was like centered around a lot of the conversations we're having. Like, this is a difficult time. You know, there's a lot of isolation and separation, and we're not gathering in the same ways that we're used to, you know, and trying to find alternative ways to like kind of meet those needs. And, you know, and it was a very, really beautiful thing to like think through how we communicate and how we can still offer things back to the community while also asking the community to come in and join us as well. Okay, so we do have a few more questions. So Kayla asks do you have any suggestions for people who want to learn their language but don't have any access to knowledge keepers or live far from their ancestral lands?
I think it really depends on what language you're learning. Like if your ancestral language is Nihiyoewan, like you have a lot of resources to work with online, and there are a lot of online classes that you can access to get to a certain level. And then I'm part of this mentor apprenticeship program where there's 15 of us all partnered with a speaker, and we're doing it all through Zoom, even though my mentor lives here. So I think it's definitely possible to get connected to like online learning spaces. I think there's other languages that have fewer resources, but I think if you approach people even in online spaces like with humility and good intentions, and kind of like state your intention to learn the language and like state that to yourself too, then you'll find people.
Actually, I was going to add the online thing. Where I'm from, El Salvador, there's like our indigenous language is Nahuatl, and I've seen groups on Instagram pop up for that. So I think like social media seems to be the best for that, because a lot of people are making these language classes possible. So I think it just takes a bit of digging, but I think Zoom and everything is making it possible.
And I think it's like finding like-minded people to share those resources with. You know, I think when you're in conversation with those who are also interested or, you know, belong within the same, have the same regional access or barriers and everything, it's really great way to like kind of figure out what's out there when you're kind of are connecting with people and building relationships that are also experiencing or a great opportunity to share what's happening. Yeah, and the next question is on, this project was this is from Madeline. This project was in part a response to the isolation disruption resulting from COVID-19. And they're wondering, how do you think your pieces about love and care would have been different prior to COVID? Kiona, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm not sure how different my project would have been. I did have to like come up with some creative ways to talk to some of my relations. But I don't know, I was staying with my mom at the time. So we talked a lot, and I think that if this, I think that this happening right now, like I guess in like the art, like material sense, like I tried to use and like be really honest with myself about like making things that kind of fit my limitations while moving through grief. So a lot of my work is like drawings on paper and things like that, like things that I repasted to the gallery walls. I'm not going to get them back because they're going to be scraped off, and just having to like be okay with that impermanence. And I guess in a way that's kind of nice and healing too, because the work is all about personal family narratives, and I know I get to keep those with me. And I think like I struggle kind of like on like the same topic of like losing language. Like I get really scared, especially if I'm being from like script land and being enfranchised. I get scared of like that idea of loss or like disappearing. So it was like very, it was nice to get to work on materials that like were very like low pressure for me, and get to like really explore that aspect of care with my mom while I was staying with her, even though I couldn't like go and physically see my mushum or like go physically to the land like I normally would. I actually just started mailing him letters, so that was something that was nice that developed like during this project as well, because he has a new phone now, but at first he had a phone and he couldn't really hear well on the phone, and he doesn't access the computer. And now he can hear us on the phone, but we got him a new one. But it's nice to have that option to mail too, because he like, when you see the work online, you'll see that I have like these little envelopes that my mushum used to put like either gifts or like little notes for me, and he like would draw these little stamps and stuff in the corner, even though we live together. I don't know, it's just very sweet. So I guess like there's ways that I adjusted the project because of COVID, but I tried not to. I think a lot of it was mostly just me realizing that I needed to like prioritize my limitations as well.
Cheyenne, do you want to answer this question as well?
Yeah, I don't imagine that my work would have changed, I don't think. And the nice thing, I guess, about working in video is with COVID, it's still accessible, I feel, and I'm not sure if Ociciwan is going to be sharing it online or not, but that would be like maybe a nice opportunity for people to still be able to access it. But yeah, I think that doing performance work and video allows for COVID to not really impact it too much. And it's actually really nice, have like, I don't know, I have like an appreciation for these like video chats, even though unfortunately we can't do like, be together, but technology allows us to still sort of be together. But yeah, that.
Emily, Sebastian, do one of you want to answer this as well? Or both of you? No?
Well, I'm just going to say that we're resilient people, and it's not COVID that's going to stop us from entertaining the idea of coming together at any point in time, now or in the past or in the future. So yeah, I eternal love as much as I can give it out, and I mean, does it bother my art practice? For sure. I miss going to art galleries. I miss the social, physical interaction, seeing people looking at art, dealing with art on the moment, on the spur of the moment. But either way, I think that, like I mentioned, we're resilient. We'll continue. We'll trek through, and we'll just give her.
I don't think that my pieces would be terribly different, but I think they are, like, all of our pieces are intended to be visited. So the fact that we can't open the gallery right now is sad. And I'm hoping that people will stand beside my, like, suspended pillows and take photos with them too. Like, they are intended to be kind of interactive in that way as well. And then people can take selfies or get people to take photos of them. So I don't think my work would have been too different, but I think we did get to kind of replicate that visiting with our Zoom calls to an extent, even though it would be nice to, like, share meals in person and visit in person. Yeah.
Are you having trouble with your dog? Should I?
I'm feeding her lots of treats to keep her
Okay.
quiet right now. The next question in the chat here, Jesse asks, like, what makes you most excited about the way language evolves?
Who wants to answer that?
I can go. I guess for me, I was actually very excited to see Sebastian's work and the way that he transformed the syllabics and became, like, another thing. I think that was really exciting for me.
Yeah, I will add that it took us a minute to see what was going on. And I don't know, I mean, I know with Spanish, people hate when certain things are changed about it, but it's a colonizer language. So I'm just like, it's not a big deal. So it was interesting to me the way you've elongated shapes, and if that, like, changes anything, meaning or intent, like, just as a designer, seeing that, the way you've taken those liberties.
Well, I mean, well, thank you, Cheyenne. Thank you very much. For me, is that I like to respect things, but also take them apart and play with them and have fun. And for me, that elongated syllabic, I mean, if it persuades a feeling of how a syllabic should sound, like I just thought that the nichimus elongated and going and touching, like, the earth and the sky and and having a different visual rapport, and it just doesn't look like syllabics anymore. It looks maybe like a painting or a drawing or a symbol in that regard. So I mean, also it's fun to get out of my comfort zone as a graphic designer when I do my art practice, more so than when I'm doing like a graphic design for clients. But and also what I wanted to make it even longer, so that you would have a really hard time seeing it, that you need to stand underneath it, and then you would be able to read it. And it's like a geeky graphic, but I wanted to make it elegant in a way at the same time.
Did anybody want to talk about the language evolving and what makes you excited about that, Emily or KIONA?
Emily, I've noticed on Instagram, you've turned some words, you've, like, rewritten them in Slavics. Didn't you do kombucha? So I'm kind of curious what you think about it, kind of like thinking about all these, like, new words and kind of like that, how that's translating or how that's kind of evolving with like this language reclamation.
Mm-hmm. I like Sebastian is so right that if you like learn the syllabics and like learn the kind of structures of the language, like it is so logical that you can start to like make your own words that apply to everyday life, like I don't know, cell phone or kombucha or whatever. And so I think it's just like actually such a funny language, like when you try and make those words, like kombucha literally means like tea that is currently fermenting. And so I don't know, in terms of like language evolving, I just like seeing our language in more pop culture in places and like TV shows in Korea, or like, I don't know, I just think it's such a funny language in the end. Like the language has always kind of existed in like ceremonial context, but we don't have it in like everyday interactions. So we don't have that kind of humor as like millennial Cree people. So that's what excites me, is like, I don't know, how funny it is in the end.
I was curious too. I don't know if we touched on this as much as I thought initially, but just about not including translations. What is the choice around that for all of you that use syllabics?
If there's a translation, for me, there's no questions, there's no conversation, they're not asking what it is, and then there's no rapport in that regard. And I find that explaining it, saw a subtitled movie in Cree with Cree, you know what I mean? Like I just thought it would bring something else in that regards. Translation, I think, is always good. It would be great if we could do it within all the dialects, THY, all the different dialects, and also with all the nations. But that would be pretty crazy. But I mean, it's questions bring conversations, and conversations brings outcomes, brings relations, builds on different things. So I thought that for me, the piece that we did on the projector, there was you see the Cree syllabic, then the Cree the Cree Roman orthography, and then in English. And one word meant so many things. So I like that, and it brings other things. And I asked my granny to repeat it to me over and over and over again. I never quite got it right, but at least I tried. And I think that's what I think.
I guess like to add on with that a little bit, one thing that I'm like, when I'm reading these comments about like emojis and like these pointing with your lips emoji would be amazing. And like, I guess one thing that I want to touch on is like humor in language. And like there's this like word, I'm pretty sure it translates to like my friend, but like I say it almost every time I see my cookum, and because I like I pronounce it just like so extreme, it like makes her laugh. She thinks it's so funny, and like she wants me to say it every single time I see her. And the word is like nutomtimtik, and like I usually say it like that, like in a like very specific rhythm. And yeah, she just thinks it's so funny. And that's like one thing I really appreciate of like spending time with my mom and my cookum, is just like laughing the whole time. Like the poem that's on for the community projection right now is like a poem that I wrote, and it's a very serious poem, like it was about a performance I had done at Emily Carr. And like at the time I was in Vancouver on my own, and my mom and my cookum were together in Wabasca, and they translated my poem for me. And I guess the whole time that they were translating my poem, like this super serious poem, they were just laughing. They were just dying laughing, because like translating these like very serious like English sentences into Cree ended up sounding like just so funny. So yeah, I think like humor is like a huge part of like language, or just like Nihio people.
Mustafa has a shout out. Mustafa has a question about emojis specific to native language. Do you ever think about designing emojis, Sebastian?
No, I never thought about deciding emoji. I mean, I don't know if I'm generationally, maybe like, I still do my emojis with the type. I don't go in my phone and try and find that actual emoji. I mean, I know two emojis, the blinking one and the smiling one, and maybe the sad one. Don't use that one too often. But I mean, yeah, why not? I could try. That would be like a super fun, like a a super fun project to do working. Oh, but with syllabics, I mean, they're nice and beautiful shapes. You could do probably a lot of different types of shapes and forms. And I mean, the pointing mouth would be the classic one. Like, depending where you're from, maybe you have more chin, so you'd have to figure out another little syllabic. But yeah, it would be fun.
That's what Alberta says,
I mean,
the pointing with
never really thought about it. Yeah.
But you were saying though, the piece that you made does end up looking like a form, like some sort of being, just the way you've designed it, very tall. It's almost like emoji.
Well, it does look like that kissing, blowing a heart emoji,
Yeah.
and it means nichimus at the same time. So hey, it's like that's
So
a plus.
you're
That's not on
halfway there.
purpose. It's just me looking. I'm halfway there.
Alberta has another question here. Was there anything surprising or interesting about your language that you have learned? I guess for the speakers, anyone? Emily?
There wasn't anything specific about my language, but I did like the fact that Emily shared with us that Nichimos is also cross cousins. And I thought that was really funny, and I just like that now.
Someone was mentioning that, oh, the word for pizza. Did you want to share that with us, Emily? Matthew Ward says,
Oh yeah.
one of the greatest words.
It's Pwaga mo pigwesigan, which means like puke bread is our word for pizza. So like, yeah, it's so descriptive as to what it looks like. And so whenever I see pizza now, I think of puke bread. Like that's what elders thought when they first saw pizza. I will say that actually Matt Ward, who asked this question, is a Twitch streamer and so has like a bunch of emojis of themselves made for their Twitch. So there are like native emojis, and Ariel Twist, who also streams on Twitch, has emojis of her too. So there are native emojis around. But yeah, puke bread.
That's really great. And I can really relate to what Cheyenne was saying about not finding the words in English. Like, English is my second language. And even though, again, Spanish is a colonizer language, I do find that it's very, very limited in finding emotions, beyond the basic of like sad and happy, there's ways of expressing different, especially with the theme of this exhibit, there's ways of expressing love for everyone, right? Not just like a romantic partner or like, love and care in so many different other ways that the English language doesn't allow for. And I'm always up for ragging on English, so. Anything anyone else wants to add? Becca, any other questions?
Let me just go over my list again. If nobody else from the audience or any participants have any questions at this point, I think we could probably wrap up our evening. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you.
I saw that it looked like Dwayne was raising his hand.
Dwayne.
I'll ask a question. Oh yeah, so first of all, I was in the gallery last week and was lucky enough to get one of these. And I just wanted to say to Sebastian that these are perfectly suited for going on guitar pedals, which led me down a really interesting rabbit hole of research into the syllabics. So they're already working as an educational tool. But yeah, what I wanted to know is, because syllabics themselves are kind of a modern technology, like you were saying, like created by a non-Indigenous person, how does that affect, like for any of the artists, like how does that affect the way that you like approach and use and want to use syllabics? For anybody.
I guess I'm like, I don't have enough knowledge on like the history of syllabics. And so I've heard 2 stories about where they actually came from, which I think because of colonization, for me, it's actually quite hard to believe that it was, I feel like the other story I've heard is that they actually came from the stars, and that they're these spirit markers. And I think that maybe it was like in our language, a muniao, who maybe helps like create actually like maybe the written language of it. But like I actually don't have enough knowledge on it to like to know whether that is true. But it'd be cool to go back in time to like be able to know like where they came from. To me, I guess like when I first discovered them was like the Cree star chart, and it felt like, this is probably just very personal because I just like also am just like, I really like this idea of aliens, and it felt like very alien looking for me. So that's why I was very excited when I saw Sebastian like elongate them and like make them like even more abstract than they already are. But yeah. I don't know,
Well,
like,
oh,
if
sorry.
Emily, sorry. One last thing. I don't know if Emily, do you know more about the story of syllabics?
I know some of it, like some of it I don't have like permission to share, but from my understanding, like syllabics aren't invented by a non-Indigenous person. Like we have James Evans, who spent some time in Norway House, which is close to where Sebastian's community is in my like geography of Manitoba anyways, which is probably very subpar, but quite close to there. And so he spent like 3 months in Norway House and claims to have invented the syllabic system. Which if you like, even linguists have said like it's not possible for him to have become fluent enough to create a writing system in 3 months. So like from the few elders of the Plains Cree that actually know like our full creation story, which takes a really long time to tell, it like the syllabics are something that came from the spirit world for us, and something that are like the sounds of the universe. So I think that part of us all using syllabics is kind of like dispelling this myth that they are like created by the clergy. Yeah, like I said earlier, we were at one point like the most literate people in the world, like more than in Europe, because people would have been able to write with syllabics. So they're definitely ours, or like something that was loaned to us. I don't know if we would take ownership over them in that same kind of Western way.
Sebastian, were you saying something?
Yeah, well, they both answered. I mean, I've been studying it like left, right, up, and down for since 2013, and there's for certain James Evans that comes in there, but there was a person before him that was part of the clergy that wrote in syllabics. Also, I mean, like also how Emily is saying that in 3 months he developed this language system is completely ridiculous. It's pretty much impossible. So unless Cree people, and this is just me debating on this really basic term, is like if Cree people knew how to already write, and this guy comes along and just wants to develop, and they're like, hey, yeah, you can do it like this, buddy. And then he just takes and runs off with it and makes it popular. I wouldn't be surprised, because that's not the first time that has happened with our people. But I mean, I don't think at this point where there's a bigger debate or it comes along is that I think we did have at some point a written a written history and an oral history. And those two things are going to come into play at some point. We're going to figure that out. Elders are going to talk more and more. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot out there. Again, I could share all my research with Michelle, and it's all by PDF. And if anybody wants to read it, they're long and short and left, right. And there's also, I can't remember the name of the article, but supposedly we got it from a badger spirit at some point. There's also that story that came about. So, I mean, we'll figure it out. It was a language that was a phonetic Latin language that was so prominent that, you know, the clergy used it and infiltrated us, and then we started using their tools with the typewriters, and those typewriters given by INAC for us to be able to use. We're so prominent and efficient in sharing information between people, and not a lot of people at that point, like non-Indigenous people, could read syllabics, so they took them all away and destroyed them. So I mean, it was a tool of also, like, syllabics was also a tool of exchanging information from nation to nation, and also to write love letters and to share and to say how you doing. And not a lot of people could understand the language, so that was also, it was like a hidden at the same time. So it's all but good. I mean, elders will, I'm sure elders at some point are going to come out with the story, and at this point I'm open to anything, really. I find it fascinating. Syllabics are just, they fascinate me.
Was there another raised hand that we missed? Well, there's one here from Matthew Ward, saying, I wonder how we think about language in written versus spoken.
I guess in reference to, like, what I can speak is English, is that I think both when you speak, you can communicate a specific way, but also when you write, you can communicate in another way. So I think it's like these two mediums that allows you to communicate in different ways.
I think that I really dearly hold on to written language, not typed, but actually impression on paper written. I have letters from my cookum who passed away at the beginning of the pandemic, and I get to keep those and really treasure them, and I get to see the weight of her hand when she writes, and that's very special to me. And same with my mushroom, there's these graphite envelopes, and the graphite's kind of smudging, and it's getting lighter over the years because I received them when I was a kid, and so I guess there is something still precious to me about this written, even if English language, and it's tied to I guess my own memories and want to have these really special, small, intimate things that I don't know, they just speak in a different way sometimes.
Did we miss a raised hand anywhere? Becca mentioned something. Kayla says they'll never forget puke bread, and neither will I.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This was a really wonderful conversation. And thank you for being patient with my puppy who is still learning her manners. So the exhibition goes on until April 10th. Hopefully we'll be opening up the space in March. We're just waiting for the government to lift some of these restrictions. So please watch, because as soon as we're able to open up, we're ready to go for appointments and viewings for folks to come in and see the space. In the meantime, please follow us. Like I said before, we'll be posting as much as we can on there and sharing it through our website and continually posting to the community board throughout the entire exhibition run. And thank you to the artists for, trusting us with this and engaging in conversation with us over this last little while. It's been such an honor to work with you all. And yeah, it's just such a joy to have this show in this space and to engage with you all about the importance of language. And it's something that we're definitely going to carry on as an art center as we move forward. So thank you everyone for coming. It was really a wonderful conversation.
Yes, thank you all. I'm such a big fan of these four guys over here. Yeah, and we'll be posting about Emily stickers and whatever else we can come up with for little care packages for y'all.
Well, have a good night. Stay safe.
Good night.
Bye.